I always feel weird describing fantasy books to people because, I don't know, I feel like I make them sound lame when they're not. 74 books. It was horrible. I didn't even want to finish it. It put me into a reading slump. It was that bad. Ready to talk books? Get my little coffee. Delicious. Also, how cute is the cup? Allie got it for me for Christmas. My wife, if you didn't know. If you're new here, my name is Sam. I share a lot of stuff on the internet, mostly though over on my channels, Allie and Sam. That's what I'm best known for. But I really like reading, and 2023 was a big reading year for me. I've always dreamed of being like a book talk girly or like a booktuber, but I never have the time to sit down and edit videos, mostly because I have 15-month-old twins. So I have never kept track of how many books I read in the run of a year. I've tried before, never been successful with it. This year I kept track and read 74 books. Honestly, I'm shocked. My goal was 50 books, and that seemed ambitious considering the fact that I started last year with 3-month-old twins and I didn't know how much I would actually get to read now that the twins were born. I've always been a big reader, but I always hear that you can't read when you have kids, which I guess I proved wrong. I can maybe do a video someday talking about how I find the time to read and how I have read so much with having 2 infants, because I've definitely found some tips and some tricks for reading a lot, obviously, because it's important to me and I didn't want to lose all of myself when I had kids, you know? So I thought that I would do a little 2023 reading wrap up. I have some stats compiled so we can look at those together and see how my reading went for the year. Starting off strong, I read a lot more books than I wanted to. 24 more books. It's huge, really. I started reading fantasy, specifically romantasy. I keep seeing this thing on TikTok in comment sections that is like, did A Court of Thorns and Roses get everyone back into reading? Because it's done it for a lot of people, and I wasn't someone who read fantasy. I loved it as a kid, but in my 20s, in my teens, I gave up reading fantasy and I was exclusively a thriller girly. I read so many thrillers. I love them still. They're so fun to read. I love the twists and the turns and seeing if I can figure out the big reveal before it's revealed. I just love that. And let's be honest, one of the reasons I gave up fantasy was because as a teen, I really did not want to be bullied. I really wanted to fit in, and fantasy did not fit the image I was trying to portray as a teen that just wanted to fit in, who was a closeted lesbian and just really wanted people to like her. And I don't know where I heard about A Court of Thorns and Roses, somewhere on the internet, and then Allie and I, my wife, were randomly at a bookstore last December, a year ago, and I saw this series and said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try, and fell down the rabbit hole of fantasy. So let's start with talking about genre breakdown. What did I read this year? Of the 74 books that I read this year, 49 of them were fantasy. That's 66%. That's a lot. Other years I would have read 100% thriller, but I only read 8% of my books thrillers. Actually, while I'm looking at this, I see that I spelt fantasy wrong, so I actually read 50 fantasy books. I also read 6 romance books, and I had never read romance before starting the like romantasy reading journey that I'd been on, but I did read a few romance books, and overall, I'm not a huge fan. So I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune because she is someone that my wife's family knows. And then I read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren because I heard those 2 books were very similar and I wanted to check it out for myself. And I read the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, which I would consider a romance, and I loved the show, found the books to be a bit of a letdown personally. And then I keep hearing everywhere on TikTok about hockey romances, and I thought, let me give this a try. I absolutely hated it. I read this one, Behind the Net, and I gave it 2 stars. It was horrible. I didn't even want to finish it. It put me into a reading slump. It was that bad. But I mean, it's fun to read other things. I also read quite a few memoirs, these ones to be specific, and I read a little bit of what I would just consider general fiction. I also kept track of how I read my books. 33.8% of the books that I read were physical hard copy books. And 11 books, which worked out to be about 15%, were audiobooks. I mostly listen to those when I walk or when I'm cleaning. But 51% of the books that I read this year were ebooks for a couple reasons. One, I got a Kindle. Also, look how cute the case is. Isn't it adorable? I made a big mistake. I had a Kobo before having a Kindle and I loved it. I could have the Libby app, which let me take ebooks out from the library onto here, and it was free and I loved it. That was my Kobo. That's the mistake I made. I lost my Kobo, no clue where it is, but I really liked being able to read in the dark, especially when the twins were sleeping. I was up breastfeeding or, you know, in the night. Problem is you cannot download the Libby app onto Kindles in Canada, only on Kobos. So I got a Kindle because it was on sale and I thought, this is great, it's a wonderful sale, here we go, back on my Libby journey. I did in fact though get Kindle Unlimited because it was a 3-month free trial and I thought, why not just give it a try? It's basically like a subscription. You pay a certain amount a month through Amazon and then you get access to their reading library. It's been good. I've read a lot of books on it. I will break that down in a second because I had kept track of that too. So I'm not regretting the Kindle as much as I was in the beginning because of Kindle Unlimited, and I'm actually enjoying the service. But it was definitely a letdown to learn that I couldn't get the Libby app on here. But I do have the Libby app on here on my phone. This is actually the trick on how I've read so much this year with having twins, and it's the Libby app. So I always have my phone on me. So when I was breastfeeding or rocking a baby to sleep or stuck nap trapped, I'd always have my phone on me and I would just read on my phone on the Libby app. And it was amazing. I got so many great books out from the library, all for free. It's wonderful. I always have my phone on me. It let me read so much. So that is why I read so many ebooks. So now we know the source type. Where did I get these books? I ended up mostly getting the books from Kindle Unlimited, which is kind of shocking. 32% of the books came from Kindle Unlimited. 31% were books that I bought personally. About 19% were books I got from the library. 15% were from Audible, and 2.7% of the books that I read were gifted. I am on a few advanced reader copy lists. So we know that I read 74 books throughout the year. How did that break down month-wise? Like this. I feel like it was actually pretty consistent across the months. There wasn't one particular month that I read a ton of books and then the rest not so much. I feel like it's pretty consistent, although there's definitely an uptick as we get around. What did I think of the books that I read? I actually read mostly 5-star reads. I rated almost 36% of books that I read 5 stars. And then was 4-star reads with almost 32% of those books. 3 stars was 26%, 2 stars was 5-ish%, and only 1 book got 1 star. I will say that any book I don't finish, I don't rate. I only rate books that I read in entirety. If I stop reading a book because I hate it, it should probably be getting like 0 stars on my chart, but I don't count it. And to be honest, that did happen a few times. So do you want to start with my lows? And I will share the books that I rated the lowest this year. My one and only 1-star read was The Fake by Zoe Whittle. I don't know. I absolutely hated it. I just might not be smart enough to get the point that was coming across, but I thought based off of the description of the book, it was going to be a fun thriller and something completely different than what it was. I didn't like it. And then I read Light Lark, which was kind of a TikTok sensation, and I also gave that 2 stars. And then I read Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which was a long read. I read it as an audiobook and ooh, it was slow going and I was not a fan. I actually enjoyed the first half of the book, which takes place in a non-fantasy realm. It takes place in our world. It is about a teen who helps an elderly neighbor, you know, like the grouchy type, and it turns out he's not so grouchy after all. They form a nice friendship. It's great. There's a dog. Love it. But then it goes into this fantasy realm and it was not for me. And then I read The Crown of Gilded Bones, which is the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I had heard amazing things. I see her books everywhere. This lady's books, oh my god, you go into any fantasy section, they are everywhere. Everyone loves them. I did not like the writing style. I didn't like the character development. The first book was a 5-star read for me. I loved it. I thought it was great. And then it just quickly went downhill. Everything felt super repetitive and I ended up just not finishing this book in the series and just giving up altogether, and I don't think I will pick up another one of her books again, which is disappointing because I really liked the first one. And then this behind the net hockey romance, I already said 2 stars. Let's talk about the books that I love. I was really into romantasy. Like I said, I read this Broken Bond series and it is unlike anything I would ever pick up for myself. It's people with superpowers. I always feel weird describing fantasy books to people because, I don't know, I feel like I make them sound lame when they're not. So this is like a polyamorous series. It is one girl and multiple men all bonded to her. I loved it. I will say I gave it 5 stars. Every book in the series, 5 stars. And then when I was thinking back on it, I feel like maybe the plot wasn't all there. There was definitely some things that weren't explained very well, but the relationship building and I don't know, the powers and like the transformations through the books of all the characters I really liked, and every one of them left me wanting to read it as quick as I could because I just wanted to devour it and then start the next one immediately. So it was a 5-star series for me. And it was on Kindle Unlimited, which feels like it was free. Divine Rivals was also a 5-star read for me, and I'm very excited to read the second book in the series. It is a duology. It's fantasy. It is not a spicy fantasy. And it is about some journalists and a war between gods, if I was to describe it really quickly. One of my favorite reads of the year was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It is not a fantasy book. It is actually, I would describe it as just a general fiction, a coming of age novel. It is about a friendship over the years between video game developers and just seeing their relationship change, and the storytelling is just amazing. I absolutely loved it, and it is unlike anything I would typically pick up for myself. But I did a question box once on my Instagram and said, what should I read? And so many people recommended it, and I am so glad that I went with the recommendation and read it. Another 5-star series for me was the Fourth Wing series. The first 2 books in the series both came out in 2023. I loved them. It is about a school for elite dragon riders. I'm sure if you read fantasy, you have heard about them by now. It has been everywhere. People are obsessed. It's going to be quite a long series, and I actually hate that because I am very impatient and I want to read a series in succession. I want to read a completed series, and I regret picking up some series this year, a lot of these series that are not complete, because I just want to know how it ends, and I'm worried that I'm just going to forget about the series and not remember to finish it when those books come out. So that is a little bit of a reading recap for me for my 2023 reads. My goal is to read 50 books again in 2024, so we'll see how many I actually read. Will it be as much as this year or this past year? Who knows? But thank you so much for watching today's video. I am hoping to do some more videos on this channel, so hopefully you see me back here really soon. Keep your fingers crossed, because I always have the best intentions of doing more videos and then I do a couple and then I fall off the bandwagon because it's hard to find time to edit with 2 little ones, especially if I want to be reading a lot. It's like one or the other. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll be back here soon with another video.